So it's the done thing, the popular thing, the trendy thing at the moment for YouTubers to overly criticise and rain absolute hellfire down on the newest video games. So the question is, does Avengers or does the beta of Avengers deserve this heavy criticism? Well, I'm going to talk about it in this video. Thanks for tuning in to this video, guys. Today I'm going to be talking about Avengers, the beta of the Avengers. I have played this game for about 4 hours now. That's enough. I feel like I've gotten a good idea, a good overall of what this game has to offer going forward. And I'm going to talk about the good, the bad and the ugly, because this game has been given a lot of scrutiny via everybody, via, every social media platform. I don't think it deserves all of it, if I'm being honest. Every game deserves criticism, and there is some serious issues with this game, but I don't think it deserves all of the criticism. So let's start with the good. So guys, I'm obviously a massive superhero fan. I love Avengers, I love Marvel, and I got a lot of great feelings playing this game. It's hard to explain if you're not a huge fan, but when you play these games and you see your favourite characters realised in a video game, it really just sort of makes you feel it right here, and it just, I can tell that it's going to make a lot of people happy because of how the game runs, how it plays in the characters, and the fact that there's going to be even more characters coming out. Even if you have to pay for them, I think it is going to make a lot of people happy, and I think we have to really understand that that is going to be the reality of what's going to happen with this game. Really, they would have had to do a really bad game for it not to sell. But I want to talk about the good. I think on a whole, the game looks pretty good. I have to say, visually, animation-wise, audio-based wise, I think the voice acting's done well. Obviously, they've got some big guns acting in the game, and I think all in all, it sounds good, it looks good, it's crisp. There's been some criticisms of terrible frame rate and vision blur, and I know that by the big YouTubers, this was like last week, so they played the beta early. Yes, there's a bit of vision blur, and it's a bit of a shame you can't turn that off. But I wouldn't have said it was disorientating by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't feel sick. A lot of YouTubers claim that they felt physically sick from the vision blur when you change direction. I never felt like this once. I've been playing games for a long time, and the only time I've ever experienced vision blur that was a bit upsetting was actually Spyro. Other than that, no. I think the vision is fine. The frame rate for me, there's a lot of criticism about terrible frame rate. I didn't get any frame rate drop at all. I played the game for 4 hours, and it ran probably at a smooth 30 FPS. Which isn't amazing, but it's good enough. It's as what most AAA games run at. So it's a bit unfair to expect it to run at 60 frames per second when the majority of games on console run at 30. As well, so it's worth saying you only get to play as Captain America and Thor for about 5 minutes of this beta, and then you get plenty of time to play as the other 4 playable characters at launch: Captain America, Miss Marvel, Hulk, and Black Widow. They all play incredibly differently, which I think is really good. It's a big pro. You could easily spend, 5 to 10 hours with each character, which, if you think about it that way, there you've got 30 hours minimum of gameplay. And I can see myself easily spending 5 to 10 hours with some characters, longer with others. Thor felt really good. He kind of felt like a light version of Kratos, because, you can throw his hammer and you can fight without it. It was nowhere near as complicated, and it's worth saying that the combat is nowhere near as complicated as, say, something like God of War. But it's there. Each character has combat trees, which, has some amount of depth. Not loads of depth, but, probably until you reach level 30, I imagine, is what the cap's going to be, because it is a looter shooter genre-based game, which I'm not happy about, but I'll speak about that a little bit later on. Yeah, but the combat is, I think, diverse enough to keep people playing it, and because there's so many characters and they've all played quite differently, I think, we've got to give props to the developers for creating a fairly diverse game. Okay, so I'm going to sort of go on a tangent. I'm going to start with the bad. So from my experience, I didn't enjoy playing as the Hulk. Everyone's going to experience this differently. I don't want to nitpick too much, but what I am going to say is I didn't enjoy the Hulk, and I thought Iron Man was okay. I thought Miss Marvel and Black Widow played a lot better. For me personally, Black Widow being my favourite of the 4 we got to play as, but I feel like Thor, Captain America are going to be my favourites, followed by Black Widow. You basically play a few story missions, and you play a lot as a Hulk, and I think it really shines true that the Hulk sort of just doesn't really fit the sort of looter shooter genre, because he's meant to be this massive beast. And I was getting one shot killed a few times, and it was a bit frustrating, and I'm going to talk about the ugly, and I'm going to talk about the immersion, which I had an issue with in a little bit later on. So the major issue I had, which isn't too extreme, which I'm hoping they'll fix, is the fact that the online didn't work. Okay, so I played about 2.5 hours to play. You basically have to play through the single player first, then you get free reign to go on the war table. It took me about 2.5 hours to get the war table, and I played 2 levels afterwards, and I couldn't get an online game. A few players were dropping in, and then as soon as it launched, they were just getting kicked from the game. And I wasn't going to sit there for hours and hours to try and get it sorted, so it better work when the game comes out, was all I'm saying. Yeah, you know what, it could maybe be a little bit difficult in the opening weekend because so many people are playing it, but the game is made to be playing online. It has to work. So I think it will, but I mean, I understand why a lot of people were complaining about the online not working because it is a huge issue. But it is the beta. I'm hoping they fix it. They better fix it. Next was the loading times. So I found that even playing the single player, there was like a 3 to 4 minute loading time on a PS4 Pro. And then the online multiplayer, I think it took me 15 minutes for the game to start. So what happened was that you log in, the players get kicked, and then you go on a loading screen and you're playing with AI, and it took 10 minutes to load a level, which is not really that good. It's terrible, actually. It's not good enough. It is not good enough at all, especially if you're playing offline. So the level took me about 6 minutes to finish. So it's like, well, okay, so take me basically 20 minutes to get into a game for 6 minutes. So what is that how the game's going to work? Because you aren't going to be able to progress very quickly, and it's just not good enough. So yeah, guys, now down to the ugly. For me, there's 2 issues. Firstly being, obviously, it's a looter shooter, and I don't really think the loot looks that good. And secondly, it's the cosmetics. So firstly, obviously, it's not. We knew it was going to be a looter slasher. I don't think superheroes is that well tuned for looter slasher, because superheroes are such varying in powers and abilities that it just doesn't really make sense. It's not like everyone's just a singular knight or singular soldier. You know, you've got the Hulk and you've got Black Widow. Black Widow has no super strength. The Hulk does. So it's it doesn't really work, and it can be quite immersion shattering when the Hulk's getting killed in 3 shots because someone's level 9. I found that quite odd. The fact that Black Widow does just as much damage with her pistols as Hulk does with his fists. It's just, for me, it's immersion shattering, it's immersion breaking, and I just didn't like it. But unfortunately, it's part of the parcel of the game. We're gonna have to take that bad with the good, because I do think it's good. I actually think this game is worth playing despite some of the decisions they made. Now, that moves me on to the cosmetics. So yes, the cosmetics are most likely all going to be microtransactions payable, and I have to say, they looked really poor. I know they're going to be holding back a lot of skins, but I don't see why you'd buy any of these skins, because, for example, Black Widow, there was like 3 costumes, but there was 9, and they were all just different colour variations of the same costumes. And for me, like, why would you buy those? Like, it just doesn't make sense why you would buy them. That leads me on to the rarity thing. So the costumes and the cosmetics have a rarity type on them, which is perfectly fine if you're finding loot, because, you know, you will level up. You find rare loot and you level up your characters. That makes perfect sense, but it doesn't make sense why the cosmetics have rarity on them. And for me, that can only be one reason, because they plan on doing some sort of loot box option where you buy a pack and then you get different rarities of weapons, different rarities of suits. But if you're only buying the cosmetics, then why would rarity even factor into it, unless there's some sort of risk-reward element involving our sweet dollar bills? So it's a bit worrying, that part of it. I think the cosmetics and the microtransactions are going to be pretty heavy in this game, which is obviously the biggest issue. I'm not disputing that. I think my overall take of the beta is that they need to fix the multiplayer. They have to fix the multiplayer. It's not working. The cosmetics and microtransactions are going to damn this game, and hopefully it'll be as poorly received as Battlefront 2 and, say, Shadow of War, where they were so badly received, and Breakpoint, where basically they had to change it. That would be top quality. But other than that, like, I do think underneath all of this drama and this microtransaction, heavy monetization, online not working, I think there's a good game there, and I think a lot of people have been giving it some extreme scrutiny, and I don't think it's actually completely deserved. I think the characters play well, they look good, and they're fun to use, and there's 6 playable characters that all offer something massively different to each other, which will keep you coming back and playing for more. And if they're going to be releasing another 4 to 6 characters over the next year, then there's potential to keep wanting to replay and keep returning to the game. So yeah, that's pretty much my opinion on the beta. What's your opinion on the beta? Are you like so upset with microtransactions you can't bear to play the game, or are you sort of like understanding that they're there and taking it in their stride and going to buy the game? I am going to buy it, because I'm a massive fan of Marvel, and like I said, there's something special about picking up these games when they're done well enough to sort of get you involved. Yeah, it's no Spider-Man, it's not going to be a Spider-Man, but it's still going to offer that something that I think every Marvel fan wants. It does feel a little bit like Marvel Ultimate Alliance when you're playing with other characters, even if they aren't online. There's just that sense of like teamwork and stuff, and I think going forward it could be really good, but we'll have to see. So that's it for this one, guys. Thanks very much for watching. As always, take it easy.